Hello guys, how are you doing? I hope you are doing great. So in this video, you will create an animated list in Jetpack Compose. You will learn how to apply simple animations in Jetpack Compose like this. So you can see that it has a very nice jumping animation. So this video is not really about the list, it's more about the animation. And as soon as you leave the screen, it will go back to its original state. So let's get into the app and see how it's built. So first we need to create a new project. So choose new project and choose empty compose activity. Click next. You can name it animation app and we can hit it finish. So first we will delete these boilerplate code and we'll delete also this function. Now we need to create a composable function for a single item. So we will say at composable function, we will say item, which is going to require a parameter for the text. So we will say item content and then we will provide the typing. So it's going to be of type string. Then we can open the curly braces. So first we need a variable for expanding the item block. So we can say var expanded by remember, and here we will use mutable state of. So you will say mutable state of, and the initial value is going to be false. Now we need to import some items. So here we will import get value and mutable state of. Then we need to import the runtime. So just hit this red bulb for import. So we need to use remember function and mutable state of so that all the items can independently store the state of expanded variable. Then we need a value for extra padding in which we will define the animation also. So we can say val extra padding, value extra padding by, and we will say animate dp as state, and it requires a target value. So for target value we can say if expanded. So if expanded is true, then we will set the extra padding for 48.dp. Let's import the dp. Otherwise we will set 0 dp. So for 0 we will say 0.dp, and then we need to provide the animation spec. So let's provide the animation spec. So here we will say animation spec equal spring, and here we need to provide the damping ratio and stiffness. So for damping ratio we can say damping ratio spring, and here we have a bunch of options. So we will go with medium bouncy. So damping ratio medium bouncy. Then we need to provide the stiffness. So we can say stiffness. For stiffness we can use spring dot. So here are quite a lot of options, but we will go with low. Again, you can test all of these options to see how the animation stiffness and the damping ratio works, but we will go with the stiffness low and damping ratio medium bouncy. So what is this animation spec? Well, it returns a state object and the value of the state object will continuously be updated by the animation until the animation finishes. So until it reaches 48 dp of length, it will continue to animate. Once it reaches 48 dp, the animation will stop. So now let's create a surface so we can have a different color on top of the background color that we have in set content block, so we can easily separate the all items in the list. So we will say surface, and we can remove the import from here because it's already get imported here at the top. So here we have the surface. So let's provide a different color for our this surface. So we will say color equals material theme dot colors dot primary. So it will lay out a different color on top of this color that we are setting in the set content block. So the main content will be on this color dot background, which we will see in a minute when we will run the app. And on top of that, we will have another color just for the items. So you will see and understand better when you will see it. So let's continue with that. After color, we can also provide modifier. So we can say modifier equals modifier dot padding. We need to give some padding, so we are going to give some vertical padding of 4.dp and some horizontal padding of 8.dp, and I guess that's enough for this surface property. And then inside this surface we will create a row, so we can put the text item and the icon button to extend or animate the item layout. So here I will say row, and let's also give some padding to this row. So we will say modifier dot padding. Let's give it 24 dp of padding. Inside this row we can create a column to put the items. So let's create another column, not another, the first column, and here we need to give it some weight. So we will say modifier dot weight, modifier dot weight, and give it 1f of weight. So we are using weight here instead of fill max width or fill wrap content because we want to give some weight to the composable at the start. The weight modifier makes the element fill all available spaces, and so it will make it flexible and it will push away other elements that don't have a weight, which are called inflexible. So it will also make the fill max width and fill wrap content modifier redundant. Then we need some padding. So here comes the padding for bottom, and we can set the padding for bottom that we created this extra padding, and then we need to constrain it with coarse at least. So we will say coarse at least with 0.dp. So what it will do, it will make sure that the padding does not go into the negative, because sometimes it happens that when you shrink the item, sometimes the padding goes in the negative, and which make the app crash. So to make sure that that does not happen, we can set the minimum padding to 0 dp, so it won't go beyond 0. So that's why we are using this coarse at least. And now we can declare the text inside this row. So for text we can say text equals, and we can pass this item content parameter that we created with this item function. So we will say text equals item content. After this text, we can declare another dummy text for extended row. So here we will say if expanded, then we will provide another text, and here for text we will just simply put some dummy text like learning animation in Compose, and we can extend it a bit by putting the plus sign, so plus, and then we can provide another string, and we can say also making a list of items. And then if we want to repeat it, we can simply call the repeat function on it. So we will say repeat, and here we can provide the numbers of time that we want to repeat. So you can provide 2, 3, 4, and it will repeat the same two strings to fill the item slot. So after the item column, we can place the icon button for extending the text. So we can put it here after the column. But first we need to add the dependency for the extended icons. So let's declare the dependency. So I am just going to here to paste the dependency, and then we can sync it. So it's androidx.compose.material material icons extended. So let's sync it now, and let's go back to our main activity, and after column we can say icon button, and you can provide an on click method on this icon button. So for on click we will just say expanded, and we can set it to itself. So every time we click it, it will set the expanded value to false from true, then true from false. So we can shrink or extend the item, and inside this curly braces we can put the icon for it. So we will say icon, and we need to select the image vector, and then we will say that if expanded, then we will use this icon. So if expanded, then we will say icons dot filled dot expand less. So we will say expand less, or else we will say, let's go to the next line first, icons dot filled dot expand more. And then for content description, you can always pass null. Actually we can pass text here for content description, so let's not pass null. So we can say if expanded, then we will say, then we can say string resource, and we need to create a string resource. So let's go to our string resource file, and here we can say, just copy it. Here we will say show less, and then again we can copy it, and here we will say show more, here we will say show more. So here we will say if expanded, then we will say, we can pass the id for it, r.id dot show less, and it's not detecting it. So let's try again. R dot, actually we need to pass the string. R dot string dot show less, and for else we can say string resource, and for id we can again say r dot string dot show more. So that's it for this function, this single item function. Now we need to create another function so that we can create the list of items using this very item function. So let's create another composable function. We can say at composable function, and this time we will say items instead of item, and here we will create items of list. So we will say list, we will provide the typing of type is string, then we can initialize it with list, and it's asking for a size, so you can give it any number you want. So I'm just going to give it 20, and then I am going to initialize it with itself. So let's say dollar and then it, and then we can open the curly braces. So here in the constructor we are creating a list of items, and we are using another list constructor which allows to set the size of the list. So the 20 is the size of the list, and then we are going to fill it with the value contained in its lambda, which is declared by the curly braces. Here the it represent the list index, so this will create 20 items as declared in the list constructor. So inside this function we will use lazy column to display a scrollable column, which is equivalent to recycler view in XML based Android programming. So lazy column renders only the visible items on screen, which allows performance gains when rendering a big list. But here we only have 20 size of list. So let's do it. So let's say lazy, we will start with capital L, lazy column, and here we have lazy column, and let's give it some modifier. So we will say modifier, and let's give it some padding. So padding, and let's give it a vertical padding of 24 dot, no, not 24, 24 would be too much, so let's give 4 dp of padding. And then it requires an item, so we will say items. Here we will have here we have a lot of items, but we need this one, the items with the list one. If you have an array, then you can use the array, but here we have a list, so we will choose this one. And inside this we need to provide the parameter for items, so we will say items equals, and here we need to provide this item parameters that we created for the list, so we will say items, and then we can open the curly braces, and then we can fetch a single item using this arrow function, and then we can call our item function here that we created earlier. So we will call our single item function. I guess this is the one, no, this is the multiple, this is one, this one, item with item content. And for item content we can pass the item. Now we need to call this function in the set content block. So let's go above, and here we can say items. Now we just need to run it and see if it works or not. So let's open the emulator, It's gonna take some time, so I will back in a moment. So the emulator is up and we can now run the app. So let's do it. So the app is up and running and we can see the list of items from 0 to 20, and here we have the icon for the expansion. So we can click this and you can see that the nice animation. So we can close it and click it. So you realize that as soon as we leave this, as soon as it disappear, it did not get closed actually. I thought it should have been closed. Let's go a little bit up. Let's come back. So it's kind of able to restore the original state that we left in. So it's a nice looking animation. So that's it for this video, guys, and I will see you in the next one. I hope you really like the video, so please subscribe the video. Actually it's closing because my system is bit slower. It's taking a little bit of time, so I was wrong. It's actually put the item in the default state, which is the false, which is the shrink version, we can say, the original padding. Let's do it one more time. Let's go up and let's come back. Yeah, it's closing. So it's able to recycle it and close it when it get invisible. So please like the video and subscribe the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Bye and take care.